Consoles are becoming irrelevant. They're going to become even more relevant going forward past next generation. And not in the sense that you shouldn't buy one or play games on a console. I'm still going to be playing consoles into next generation and beyond. It's just the fact that we are never really going to see a major jump in the overall experience we get from a console. We've already experienced, I'd say here, at least with the Series X side of things, one of the most next gen things, which is something like quick resume, something that we don't have anywhere else. And when you experience quick resume for the first time, it's almost something you can never go back from. When you go from a PS5 to an Xbox Series X and you experience the power of quick resume, it changes the way that you play games on console. It's that simple. I mean, I wrote a tweet about that and some people were saying it doesn't work and everything, which to me is just complete garbage. It works very, very good for majority, I would say 99% of games. Sometimes when you're playing multiplayer games, it may not be perfect, but it is a game-changing feature on a console. And I'd say stuff like that is more of the next generation features that we can expect from consoles going forward. But when we look at the graphical side of things, we will never be in the era of going from PS1 to PS2, from the Xbox to the Xbox 360, or from like the Super Nintendo where everything was 2D. Then we got wowed by the 3D graphics of something like Mario 64 and the 3D landscapes and everything. Those days are long behind us. The incremental upgrade in graphics, I think for the majority of people, won't really matter that much. People just want to sit down and play their games. If it looks nice, it looks nice. But the better lighting, slightly better resolutions, and steadier frame rates isn't going to be a huge game changer, I would say, for the majority of people who do play games on consoles. And we have an article here. This is actually back from a few weeks ago, but it's one that I missed, and it's an interesting take here from Sean Layden. As we know, Sean Layden used to be a PlayStation. He's now at Tencent, and he kind of puts this point home for a lot of people who think that consoles and locking games to consoles, or the console ecosystem where you don't get to play games anywhere else, is going to be the future. He kind of puts the point home here that does not look like it's the future. And I'm sure he's consulting here with Tencent and telling them all of this type of stuff, and you can kind of see where Tencent is going, trying to expand out as much as they can and get their games into more places and onto as many platforms as possible. Here's the article. It says, former PlayStation boss says you're not going to see another PS1 to PS2 jump in performance and believes we're nearing a point where the consoles become irrelevant. And specifically here, he's talking to Eurogamer, and he says, I think we're at a point where the console becomes irrelevant in the next, if not the next generation, then the next generation definitely. Saying here that we're at a point now where the innovation curve on the hardware is starting to plateau or top out. At the same time, the commoditization of the silicon means that when you open up an Xbox or PlayStation, it's really pretty much the same chipset. It's all built by AMD. Each company has its own OS and proprietary secret sauce, but in essence, it's the same. I think we're pretty much close to the final spec for what a console could be. And that is a point that I don't think enough people kind of realize, and I don't know why, because it's very, very obvious, but the current gen consoles, PS5, Series X, Series S, you take off the shell, they're all the same under the hood. They're all AMD, they're all x86 architecture. They just have differences in GPU and CPU power. Basically, that is it. Their SoCs are slightly scaled differently, which is the exact same thing with all of the various rigs of PCs that are out there on the market. This is not like what we did see during PS3 versus the Xbox 360 generation. If you remember that generation, very interesting generation from a technical perspective. You had the 360 that released a year early, and it was easy to develop for. Developers were able to get their games out there. The 360 sold very well. It was destroying the PS3 for the majority of the generation, because when the PS3 launched a year later, one, it was very expensive. Two, it had the cell architecture, which a lot of developers had issues optimizing their games for, and it took them a while to understand how to use it properly before their game started running very, very well. The PS3 then took off near the end of the generation, and I believe sold more overall than the 360. It was a very close generation, though, and obviously sales in Japan for PlayStation does really help them get more consoles on the board, because the 360, even though it's very successful, a lot of people always like to point to the 360 as the big successful Xbox console. In Japan, it still wasn't very successful. It was like 1.7 million units sold. And you can take that and you can look at that whole strategy of Xbox everywhere it doesn't matter how many good Xbox exclusives come out that would be locked to the Xbox console, it's still not going to sell well in Japan. Those consoles just will never move, which is why I think one of the major reasons they are putting their games everywhere, putting their games on PS5 is just to get their games in front of people in regions of the world where they would otherwise not see or play those games. But when it comes to, again, the consoles going forward, we like to talk about the next generation and what's going to happen as we get closer to the next generation, myself included. I'm going to be a victim of this. I'm going to be someone who is guilty of this as well. So we're going to start seeing a lot of specs regarding potentially what's going to happen with the PS6 and with the Xbox Series X2 or the Xbox Next. I think they should just call it, honestly, Xbox at this point, but who knows what they're going to call it. And we're going to start getting really excited to think that we're going to get this just insane moment of we've never seen a game look this good on a console before, and nothing that we could even imagine on the previous generation of consoles. I think those moments are long gone. I don't think we'll ever have that again. It will simply be games will look sharper, they'll have better frame rates, and they'll have better lighting. But the biggest thing that will improve your gaming experience, and I've experienced this myself just in the last couple of weeks, because up until then I did not have an OLED TV, it's upgrading your TV. If you want to get a better looking video game from a console, or even from your PC, if you plug it into your TV, you just got to upgrade your TV and get a better TV, get an OLED display, and games actually look like you're playing something brand new from what you were previously playing. So that is going to be where people at the end of the day, I think, start seeing major jumps in how their games do look visually, how the experience is better in your home entertainment system. It's with the improvement of the TV technology. But this is why going into next gen as well, handhelds are going to be such a killer device. Like, they are going to be huge for a lot of people because you're going to get amazing experiences on those things. You're going to get console-like experiences, almost as good as what we currently have right now. Yeah, lower resolutions and lower frame rates, but you're going to be able to play every game that's coming out on those big high-powered devices in the palm of your hands, which I know for me growing up is something I always dreamt of because I loved handheld gaming, and we're here now. If you remember back in the days with handhelds, you had separate games. They were new, different experiences. They weren't like the console experiences, which actually was pretty cool. I do kind of like that as well. I still play Game Boy Advance games, but we're at this point now where everything is just the same across the board. Never would have thought we would have gotten to that point when I was younger, and here we are. But I just wanted to talk about that because I thought this was a pretty interesting article, and I think the future of consoles are going to be less and less exciting from the graphical perspective. It's going to be all about the features in there. Will PlayStation have quick resume? I think they will, but I've also heard some interesting points that has kind of started to change my mind a little bit, that Jason Ronald and the team behind the Series X, they built the entire platform for Xbox around being able to put in a feature like quick resume or other features that they do have in there. And if PlayStation didn't do that, they may not be able to add that into their next generation console if it just doesn't support that style of feature, unless they again start from the ground up. Not sure if that's true, but if that's the case, I mean, quick resume, again, killer feature, and then backwards compatibility and be able to upgrade games and make them look and run like brand new games is something I think will also be huge going forward. Series X with a disk drive, fully backwards compatible for all generations. Not every single game, of course, but you can get OG Xbox games and 360 games. Well, PlayStation with the PlayStation 6, because we've been hearing that they want to kind of do this, or the people who help bring PS2 emulation want to do this. Will there be full emulation for their entire generations of consoles? That would be a killer feature for me on the next generation. That would be something I would go out and pick up a PS6 for sure for. If I can put in a PS1 disc, a PS2 disc, a PS3 disc, and play it on a PS6, I hope we do get to that point with PlayStation as well, because that would be absolutely massive. But all in the video there, guys. Just wanted to put some thoughts out there on this Sunday. Not too much crazy going on in the news. It should be a big week coming up with CES and everything. There's going to be lots to talk about. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you do enjoy the video, make sure to hit that thumbs up, share the video, all that stuff, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.